that, and like I say, you know, the whole scientific community agrees with that position. Now, let me turn to Trump. And I'm sure most of you have already heard what he said about climate change and so on. But I want to read a few of his quotations. And the first one is that this very expensive global warming bullshit, and this is the president's language, not mine. This very expensive global warming bullshit has got to stop. Our planet is freezing. We've got record low temperatures, and our GW scientists are stuck in ice. He went further on to tweet that the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make US manufacturing non-competitive. He went on further to say that global warming is based on faulty science and manipulated data. Now, I was wondering what does one say about a person who believes this? Now, the thing about Trump, which maybe other political scientists can also analyze this, he contradicts everything he says. He'll say one thing today, and then tomorrow he'll say something else. So it's very difficult to analyze what he's actually saying. Because at some earlier stage, you know, at one stage Trump wanted to be a presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. In those days, he accepted the fact that there was some connection between climate change and people. He now no longer accepts that. So, but be that as it may, I've often wondered how it is, how can anybody look at the evidence that's available on climate change and denies that? Who does that? What kind of person does that? But of course in the United States and in other places that's quite common. It's quite common. And it's quite clear again to me that the people who deny the science are the people who are going to make tons and tons of money out of ruining the environment. If you look at who he's appointed as his Secretary of State, the new Secretary of State, as you know, in the United States is the former ExxonMobil Chief Executive. Now, ironically, he does accept that we are responsible for climate change. He's one of the few in the whole Trump thing that does accept that. All the others reject that. You also know that, you know, the new person Trump appointed for the Environmental Protection Agency, a guy by the name of Scott Pruitt, I think is his name. He's also a climate change denialist. So there are a whole lot of weird people in America now who are denying climate change. They really are completely weird. I'm not sure, I'm not sure where they've been all this time. But I think that, you know, in many ways, my own view is that, as I've already said, that there are a group of people who now control America. They are out to make as much money for their own private companies as possible in the shortest possible time, and they don't give a damn about what's happening in the world. They just don't care at all. What is really sinister, which scientists have to think about very, very carefully and take note, is that within hours of Trump coming into power, rumors begin to circulate that the government agencies have been, it wasn't a rumor. In fact, the Environmental Protection Agency and a whole lot of other agencies in the United States were told to remove a whole lot of things from their websites that related to climate change. They had to take it off, and a political person was put in charge, and they were told very clearly that if you release any other statements on climate change, it's got to go through, it has to be politically vetted before that can be done. Okay. Now actually that's not the first time this has happened. It's not the first time it's happened. When George Bush was the president, he did exactly the same thing. He wanted all the agencies that were funded by the American government to stop using the term global warming. Many of them, of course, didn't adhere to that. They continued with their scientific work, but many of them lost their jobs. When this fellow Harper was the Prime Minister in Canada, exactly the same thing happened in Canada. Scientists were told that they should not talk about climate change. Their work was censored. In fact, in Canada, you know, a lot of them, a lot of the scientists, the secret police were keeping tabs on the scientists. Their security police were keeping, scientists were followed, you know, they were threatened and so on. A whole lot of libraries and research programs that were dealing with climate change were closed. So I think what we have to do, our responsibility, I think, is to analyze why they do this and then take some response. I'm going to make some comments about that. I've already basically said, you see, that I think that Trump and company acting on behalf of huge multinational corporations who are keen to make as much profit in the shortest possible time. Trump's intervention is not just about climate change. If you look at what they are doing in education, you will be more horrified to see what they are doing. Now, when Trump became the president, his first nomination for Secretary for Education was a person by the name of Jerry Falwell. He didn't accept the nomination. But what he does do is to run something called Liberty University. And I want to read a small section from his prospectus for you. Liberty University Center for Creation Studies is a dynamic, teaching-based academic center. Our purpose is to research, promote, and communicate a robust young earth creationist view of history, beginning with sound biblical interpretation. We seek to understand how science can inform us about God, about God's magnificent creation. So, again, and in fact, you know, the person who did become the Secretary for Education is exactly the same. She's a multi-millionaire, a creationist who denies completely and absolutely evolution.